So for me, my first postpartum, I thought that like I knew a few things because I had been around some breastfeeding women. I hadn't looked up close. I hadn't really learned that much about a latch, but I just was steeped in a natural community. And I felt like that for me, for some reason, was going to be enough and that I'd have people I could ask questions to. But I had no clue how quickly things can go south if it's not going well, if something about their latch isn't right.
Welcome to the Birth Education Center podcast, hosted by myself, Care Messer, an entrepreneur, birth educator, and doula. My team and I want to help you discover your options in birth and postpartum, how to find your voice, and how to use that voice to navigate our maternal healthcare system. You and your baby are not just a number. This information includes doulas too. Now let's get started. I want to welcome everybody here today. I have Dr. Morgan on again. I can't get enough of her. You guys can't get enough of her. And if you don't know about her podcast, I'm going to link it below. It's phenomenal. And I wanted to bring an expert on today to talk about, we're going to make it a two-part series. We're going to do one on breastfeeding prep and the pitfalls that we're all seeing with breastfeeding support. And then on part two, we're going to go into postpartum, what really happens, what your body needs to recover, the real deal, like what we've done for thousands of years and why it's worked and where we're falling short now. So welcome, Morgan. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me, Cara. I love talking to you.
We have fun. And Morgan talks faster than I do. So if you haven't heard past episodes, heads up and a warning. And I don't know if you can slow it down. Maybe you can, but anyway, it's a lot and we talk fast. So what I'm seeing right now with breastfeeding support, and Morgan, I want you to introduce yourself before you answer this question. I'm seeing that families who want to breastfeed don't get any early education because they think it's natural. It will just happen. My nipples will spurt milk. They don't even know that milk spurts out from around the nipple. They just think it comes out in a little stream. I don't know what they think because they've never done any research on it. They think it's natural. They get to the hospital. They're told certain things about their body, pumping early, your milk's not coming in, whatever. They're coming home with formula. They're coming home with donor milk because I have a hospital here that has donor milk that they love to sell and bill your insurance for. And they're done breastfeeding within a week or two, and they feel absolutely devastated by it. I know what I tell my parents. Go to a breastfeeding support group before you're pregnant. Find your tribe. Get your lactation consultant information on your fridge. Who do you vibe with? Like way earlier. But they're so focused on the birth and the prep for that they just don't make time for it. And then they regret it afterwards. I also say get a therapist, but I say that really early. Get a therapist because if you're breastfeeding and crying and all the things, you need someone that you can see from your couch. So let's start there. Morgan, introduce yourself and then tell us what kind of information they need even before they get to their birthplace.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you're making this episode. Real quick about me. So I'm a naturopathic doctor. I practice in Idaho. And so in Idaho, we are called naturopathic medical doctors. And that's just to distinguish ourselves from quote unquote lay naturopaths who, because of the laws of the state, can call themselves that legally. They can call themselves a naturopathic doctor. So I'm a naturopathic medical doctor in Idaho, if that matters. I went to a medical school and I specialize in the perinatal women's health space, pregnancy, birth, breastfeeding, postpartum, motherhood, and later on. And then of course, a little bit of pediatrics because I feel like that's just the natural flow. When you treat people's families, you get them pregnant, they want you to see their kids too. So, and obviously I also love it. I have my own 4 small children. So I guess they're growing now, but between 2 and 9. And
it's fun to watch them grow, by the way. I love watching all of your Instagram stories. It's very personal. You guys need to follow her on Instagram.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I do try to share the real side of motherhood because I'm not somebody, as much as I'm obsessed with motherhood, I'm not somebody who thinks that it's easy. And a lot of that revolves actually around breastfeeding for me because of the morphology of my baby's mouths. They're all lip and tongue tied. But even if they weren't, I still was really surprised and shocked as a first-time mom, all of the different things that you need to learn in breastfeeding. But so really quick before we go into that, I do host a podcast like you mentioned. I co-host it with another naturopathic doctor she specializes in the like fertility, infertility, hormones, low tox living, low libido, sperm health, things like that. And then I pick up where people get pregnant and then beyond. It's called Healthy as a Mother. So you guys should check that out. And then I run different educational courses from my website, which is milkmedicine.com. My Instagram, like you said, is also an educational platform, but specifically in my stories, I do try to share how I'm actually truly feeling about it. And maybe it's a little bit TMI or unprofessional, people might say, quote
It's
unquote.
not. It's absolutely not, and I love the day-to-day and the, "Ugh, I didn't get any sleep last night, and this is what happened," and, no, that's so real, and it blows the Instagram fake stuff out of the water, which is what we need.
Yeah. And I really just, first of all, I'm just a very big oversharer, but then I also remember what it was like for me in trying to figure this whole motherhood thing out. And there's a couple of instances where women who I'd seen before me have babies, like they were also medical students with me at my school. And they had kids in school. And I had my first during my third year. Don't recommend that. But because I saw them so gracefully move through this season of having their children while also in graduate school, I was like, I can do that too. And as it came out later, after I was having this very large struggle, I was talking to them about certain breastfeeding things actually. And they were like, oh, yeah, I had mastitis early on. And I'm like, what? Like, I had no idea. Just because there's no, people don't really want to talk about the negative side of things, or I don't know, maybe it's
Just the
just,
real life of it. Not
yeah,
even negative, it's just what's happening to me in the moment.
yes. And I just had no clue. So it's really one of my goals to share how it's not all ideal by any means. And actually, this last week for me was one of the hardest weeks that I've had in probably a year and a half. And it was a multitude of different things, but I'm just like, damn, this is happening to people all the time and nobody is talking about. I haven't actually shared about it specifically yet, just because when I'm in the middle of it, it like when it's really bad, I tend to clam up, but I will in a moment here, but or not on this podcast, but in general, I try to not brush those things aside or paint my life as perfect because I don't think it serves anyone. And I think there's so much strength in and inspiration and sharing stories where you have struggle and then how you overcame it. And that's how we learn about everything and anything. And as one of my main pieces of advice to people who are pregnant and they're getting ready to have their babies, whether it's their first, second, third, fourth, it does not matter, is listening to birth stories. Like you forget, like, yes, your body can do it, whatever, but it's nice, I think, to hear stories of how it's worked out for other women, good and bad and the ugly. Some people aren't going to want to listen to the negative stories. For me personally, it doesn't bother me. I glean information from them. I learn from those stories. I'm picking up on patterns and whatever. But you know yourself, if you only want to listen to and pack your subconscious with good, positive ones, I totally support that. And I think that makes sense. I think maybe I'm a bit of an anomaly that those sorts of stories don't scare me. But with breastfeeding
I
too,
liked all of them too.
yeah,
It was a reality and I go, "Oh," then I note to self, "I'm not gonna do that," or note to
exactly.
self, "I need more support here." Yeah.
Yeah, it's a learning opportunity if you want to frame shift it that way in your mind. If somebody, you know, and it's not cool when a friend dumps a negative birth or breastfeeding story in your lap, but you can frame shift it to say, I wonder what like happened actually. Not that it's necessarily that person's fault, but they were somehow led astray or not supported. And with breastfeeding specifically, there's this really frustrating narrative about how, oh, for my mental health, I had to stop breastfeeding. And okay, listen. I get it because my first postpartum was hell because of my breastfeeding complications, but it wasn't really because of the act of breastfeeding. It was because I wasn't supported in the ways that I needed. I didn't get the help that I needed on time. So my nipples got damaged really quickly and too early, and et cetera, et cetera. But there's actually very good research. I just want to say this because if people are worried about it going in, there's really good research about how breastfeeding is protective against postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. We don't know if it has to do with these consistent oxytocin boosts that you're getting throughout the day every single time you have a letdown, which is where the milk is coming out when your baby is feeding or you're pumping. We don't know exactly what it is, but there is really good research to support that. So I think that when people are connecting breastfeeding as being the cause of their negative mental health postpartum, a lot of that has to do with support and expectations, maybe the lack of expectations of what they thought was going to happen. So as it comes to breastfeeding prep, to dive into that, like you said, I highly suggest people learn as much as you can about it while you are pregnant. You do not want to be trying to learn about breastfeeding whilst breastfeeding. It is.
Especially in the hospital, like 10 minutes after you've had the baby and the nurse is going, blah, 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 because it's so overwhelming and you're so tired from labor and then you're being flooded with information that you can't even take in. Yeah, it's
You can't take it
hard.
in. It's sometimes wrong, and we'll get there too, talking about what, advice that's given in the hospital or even by midwives too. I mean, bless their souls, but they're not IBCLCs. And I'm a huge pro IBCLC person, so International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. And here's the thing, for a certain percentage of women, breastfeeding will be that thing that we all want, which is natural. They just put the baby to the breast. They have a perfect nipple that sticks out. Their baby has a perfect mouth. They have no pain. It all is just like hunky dory and awesome. For whatever reason, it appears that in the last 15 years, there has been a dramatic increase in these oral ties, lip and tongue ties. There's going to be one day where we figure it out, like what is happening, or tightness in being tight, T-I-G-H-T. But either way, tight or tied, there is pathology that can come about from that very quickly. And breastfeeding is such a time sensitive hormone loop to either catch or to let go of. So, for those that are planning on it, I'm not saying this to freak you out. I'm saying this to say, listen, it's so fun being pregnant, maybe for some of you, not all of you, but being pregnant and preparing for the baby to come and the nursery and even the birth. I feel like there is a lot of good birth prep now. Still, people have a lot to learn with like providers and different things like that. But if you're somebody who's like just spending all your time on your birth, you must remember that the bigger, more long-standing, intense, maybe not acutely intense, but over the long-term period of mothering is coming after that baby is born. And if you do have the desire to breastfeed, no, you don't want to expect that you're going to have problems, but you want to learn about it. It's like somebody who is preparing for, like, maybe you're preparing to go to a different country and you're going to be there for a while. Yeah, you could just fly by the seat of your pants and try to figure it out as you go, but you're probably going to make some really grave mistakes or have some big learning lessons that might come about from that if you didn't learn about it at all. And yes, while you're in the country and you're exploring around, you're going to have to learn on the go and on the job. And breastfeeding is like that. There's no actual training that's going to prepare you exactly for what's going to happen because nobody knows. But you need to be familiar with and comfortable with the concepts and the terms so that you know what's normal, what's not, how to get help when you need it, what the help might look like so that you're not shocked by, oh, there's this thing called like a lip release, a tongue release. Oh, there's these exercises I might be doing. Oh, there's nipple shields. Oh, there's maybe I'm pumping for a period of time. Maybe I'm collecting my milk over here. Maybe I have too much milk. Maybe I don't have enough milk. Maybe I need to troubleshoot some things. Holy shit, my thyroid's off and I have anemia. And so that's affecting my milk supply. You know, we need to know about some of these things. And again, I don't want it to feel overwhelming. It just needs to be integrated into our overall, I'm having a baby motherhood prep. And so to me, what that would look like is take a breastfeeding class. If this would be my ideal. Okay, let me lay out what I would wish upon every single woman on the planet if I could.
Yeah, I have an ideal too of where to take that class.
Is that
and
you?
who to take it from. No, not even me, but out of hospital.
Oh,
because
got
it's
it.
a
Yes.
different
I
type
was
of
going to say,
education.
100%. Yes. So if you have, if like in your show notes or something, put some of these ideas for where people can take these classes. Because I think a lot of them don't even know that they're around, or they seem bougie, or they seem extra, or it seems like, oh, but aren't they going to talk about that in my birth class? And it's unfortunately a lot of the times, no.
We don't have time.
Yeah,
Like,
there's too much
so
to
much
learn.
prep for birth.
Yes.
And we're not the leading expert unless we are an IBCLC. And you could
Yes.
take a course from a lactation consultant that knows the pitfalls and can really dive in. I can't do that in hypnobirthing.
Yes.
Like
No, exactly.
I brush up against it. That's it.
Right. And we also need to not say, oh, my midwife is going to help me with breastfeeding, because unless your midwife is also an IBCLC, which many are not because they are midwives and that takes up all of their time and that's their area and focus and expertise. And that's how it should be, I think. Sure, if they want to have that also, then that's great. But for most situations, even if you're birthing at home or a birth center, or if you're unfamiliar with those concepts and you're going to birth in the hospital and you're like, oh, but there's lactation consultants in the hospital. Here's the thing about the lactation consultants in the hospital that let's just get this out of the way right now. Unfortunately, a lot of them are either lactation nurses or nurses with one additional class, or they are lactation consultants, LCs. Very rarely are they IBCLCs. And the difference in training and education between an LC and an IBCLC is ginormous. So an LC is really great for normal breastfeeding. Here's some positions. Here's some different metrics of how much they should gain and when, blah, blah, blah. Anything outside of the realm of normal, any level of pathology, they just don't have the skills or expertise or training for that. We need to go to the IBCLC world. Now, in addition, though, a pitfall of working in a hospital system is that they only get to see a woman for 24 to 72 hours, maybe maximum a week if she has some kind of complication. There's not a lot of continuity of care, though, in learning for somebody in that realm. where they're watching their clients actually succeed with the advice that they were giving them. So they
Well,
don't,
and you're also going to get a different one on every shift. If
yes,
you need help every time you nurse, it's a different person coming in going, oh, no, that's not working. We're doing this. Oh, no. And you're flooded with more information of like, I don't know what to do.
yes,
Everybody's giving me different advice.
you're being ping ponged around, and it's just really a disservice because, as you said, there's already so much going on. There's already so many amazing things that you want to focus your time on and attention on, which is like absorbing your newborn baby and processing what just happened, that you gave birth, no matter how it happened. And we just need this to be as streamlined as possible. So ideally, a pregnant woman is really taking this seriously and involving her partner to say, yo, breastfeeding is really intense in the beginning. But the way that they're going to know that, though, is that they've taken a class, because how else would you know that? Also, to know that it's going to quickly change and get easier. But the very beginning is a lot of different learning parts. So ideally, we take a class. If there, or like it could be online, it could be in person. Maybe if there isn't a class that you're able to take, or you're learning about this too late or something, go to a in-person physical in your city lactation group and just sit there as the pregnant woman. And they're all probably going to look at you like, dang, she's smart. That's so smart.
Absolutely. And you should go to a couple of them because you don't know which, are these guys too crunchy? Are these guys just right enough crunchy? Are these guys as medical as I need? Like you're going to know your people if you go to several of them and don't just give up after one. If you can get any time off before that baby comes, get into a lactation group, you're going to hear amazing things from those women.
And a lot of them run on the weekends too. So you can make it work somehow to at least get a little bit of exposure, because the saddest thing to me is that most women in this country, at least, are breastfeeding and seeing a breastfeeding baby up close on their own bodies. They're seeing a breastfeeding baby for the very first time when it's attached to their own breast. And that is ridiculous. And it's not like I'm saying people, you guys are ridiculous if that's the way that it's happening for you. That's how it was for me too. But it's like, that makes no sense. What in the world? Like, how do we think that we're going to understand what a good latch looks like, or even just the concept and idea of how many times a woman might have to unlatch, reposition, and relatch her baby? Because when it's you at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to get a good latch, and you're like, what is going on? And it's taking a long time, and the baby's fussy, and you're having to get up and walk around, and you don't realize that actually that's normal. There's a lot of that happening all around the world at that exact time of morning too for you. But you feel so alone, and you feel so other than, and you feel so, there's something wrong with us, or there's something wrong with my baby. I can't do this. Man, I'm just not cut out for this. This is not normal. This isn't real. Like, whatever. You might make a lot
Oh,
of
the
stories.
self-talk gets so bad and it's such a temporary situation and it is so normal. But since we're not in villages and tribes anymore, we just don't see it. We don't hear it. And we didn't have 20 aunties to say, here's what works for me. It's
Yeah, here, try
frustrating.
this, try that. Oh, yeah, no, that's okay. He's a little overly hungry. So here, get up, bounce him, get him latch, get him a little bit sleepy. Oh, did you know that it's a little bit easier sometimes to feed them when they're a little sleepy? Okay, then you can do da da da, whatever. Any of these little things, they make the world of difference when you're just like, what is going on? So, some sort of prep in that sort of a way is going to be your grounding foundation. Okay. And like you said, too, to find your IBCLC in your city that you're going to call on, should you need her help, is one of those seemingly small tasks that you will be so happy with yourself if you've already got her number in your phone. Maybe you've even called the office. You can have a prenatal visit too with an IBCLC. So you can,
She
while
can
you're,
check your nipples out. You can see
yes,
if insurance covers her because a lot of insurances cover 5 visits now.
yep. Exactly. You can go, you'll physically meet her. She'll give you a little bit of an in-person class. And that just, it can be everything, like everything, to attenuating your overwhelm, to helping you feel confident, to just the entire experience of your postpartum not being like a shit show, you know, if you want to breastfeed. So for me, my first postpartum, I thought that like I knew a few things because I had been around some breastfeeding women. I hadn't looked up close. I hadn't really learned that much about a latch, but I just was steeped in a natural community. And I felt like that for me, for some reason, was going to be enough, and that I'd have people I could ask questions to. But I had no clue how quickly things can go south if it's not going well, if something about their latch isn't right, if, you're in this stressful circle and loop of dealing with their lack of weight gain. There's so many little nuances. Like, for instance, let me just list off a few things. Did you know that if in your labor you get IV fluids, you have an epidural, you have a cesarean, any of those kinds of things, they can lead you to then having more engorged breasts when your milk is coming in later on. It can be harder for that baby to latch. So you might need to do something called reverse pressure softening. Okay, reverse pressure softening should be a concept that every pregnant woman has at least heard. Maybe she doesn't know exactly how to do it, but she can go to a YouTube thing, type it in, and be like, wait, that's right. If I'm too engorged, I can do this thing to help my baby latch. Okay, also, in addition to that, did you know that a baby that's born to a mother who's been on IV fluids, had an epidural, had a cesarean, because there's IV fluids involved in all of those, that baby now might be several ounces heavier due to the IV fluids in their bodies. So that, say this baby that comes out and is, oh my gosh, this baby's 9.8 pounds. Okay, so has 9.5 pounds. And then they have this normal physiological weight loss. Every baby is going to lose some weight, and it's okay. There's a certain percentage where it's okay. And then there's a certain percentage where everybody's going to go, alarm bells, you don't have enough milk. This baby can't feed. You need to give them formula. Okay. First of all, that conversation is way more nuanced than just, oh, they've reached more than 10% of weight loss. But did you know that baby might actually, truly, their body weight might be like 9 pounds, 3 ounces. And so then when they lose weight, it's going to feel rapid. It's going to feel like too much. It's not actually even that the baby is in trouble and harm, but these types of concepts are not familiar or trained in hospital settings. And so you would really need to be fighting against this, because they're going to come in, the pediatrician's going to weigh them. They're going to say, oh my gosh, something's going on here. So like just that concept, we need to be able to have some good advocacy knowledge and expectation around this, and be able to look to the other markers. Are they peeing and pooping? Does the latch feel good? Can I hear them swallowing? Am I seeing that happening? All these, is my milk coming in? Is it my breasts are feeling softer after the baby's fed? There's so many little indicators of if the baby's getting enough milk. One thing that I think,
Look at
oh,
that.
go ahead.
Look what you just listed out.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
But
It's so
we are
much.
so used to weighing and measuring, and that is the standard, that, oh, baby's lost too much. Here's formula. You're not going to produce enough. Here's your breast pump. And now we are all the way down another road that we didn't even need to be down. That's going to set us up for success. Maybe not. And
Yeah.
that could be the end of what we really wanted to do because of one marker that one person said without the nuance conversation.
And okay,
Oof.
for more nuance too, even a weighted feed. So this is another concept you should know about. A weighted feed is where you weigh your baby, you feed them, and then you weigh them again. And on an infant scale, it has to be a sensitive scale, because we're looking at ounces, even to the half ounce. How much did they intake? Because that can be helpful data, but we need to collect many pieces of weighted feed data. We cannot go off of one feed, because breastfed babies, just like regular humans of all ages, do not always eat the same exact amount every single time they feed. Sometimes they're going to have an ounce and a half. Sometimes they're going to have 3.5 ounces. Sometimes it's going to be half an ounce because they just wanted to suckle and then fall asleep. If we just go and we get one data point and we say, oh my gosh, my baby's only transferring 1 ounce and I fed them for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it is, that is not enough for you to make any kind of major decision, like that you're going to stop breastfeeding, that you're going to label yourself with low milk supply, that you're going to label your baby with a shitty latch, or whatever it is you're going to do with that. We cannot do anything with that one piece of data. Again, we need to look at the entire picture. So this is where we need to have a good, well-rounded idea of what is breastfeeding. Okay, breastfeeding is this huge learning event. You actually said, it's my favorite breastfeeding quote, and it comes from you, which is, breastfeeding moms learn to breastfeed by breastfeeding. Babies learn to breastfeed by breastfeeding. And it's so true for the vast majority. Again, there will be a certain small percentage where it just hits off like totally fine. There's going to be a then bigger percentage who things are going mostly awesome, but there's a little bit of learning, and that's okay. There will be some then who I fall into this category where they have a lot of pathology and problems, but it's not unovercomable. Like, it's not.
It's all temporary, but that's the thing we don't know, because we go in not knowing what we don't know. We go in and they're like, here's your pump. You got to start doing this. Oh my gosh, your milk's not coming in. Your baby's going to starve. Like, all the stuff right from the beginning. And if you don't know, colostrum is milk.
Yes.
If that's supposed to be the in-between transfer of the actual milk coming in, please cover all of that, because there's just so much we don't know about early body.
Yes. Okay. So starting at some point in your pregnancy, sometimes as early as in the mid-20s of weeks pregnant, you will start to create colostrum. Colostrum is a form of milk. It is just an early milk, and it is purposeful. And that is what a baby for the first 2 to 5, sometimes even 6 days is expecting to eat. They're not expecting to have full milk. If your milk comes in earlier than that, it's okay. That's what's going on between you and your body and your baby. But when a nurse or somebody is telling a 2 or 3 day postpartum woman, "Oh, that baby's crying a lot. I think that they're hungry. They're just not getting enough." Go ahead and give them a bottle of formula. Unless that there is many other points of data that are pointing to that baby is truly not getting enough milk and that there's something really pathologically going on here and the baby needs to eat, I personally think that sort of advice should be considered malpractice. It is not in line with physiology. It is not in line with public health. It is not in line with anything that is going to help that mother breastfeed. And it is such a cop out. It's such an easy thing to say. It is, what are you even talking about? A 2 or 3 day old baby is not expecting to get a full bottle of milk of any kind. What are you talking about?
Even be getting your milk supply when you're in the hospital. You shouldn't be there more than 48 hours unless there's complications, right? Unless you have really good insurance, they like to keep you. Your milk supply shouldn't even come in yet. Why are we talking about formula or donated milk to take you home just in case over the weekend you might need it?
I know. And that really gets in people's heads. It's like the same thing with birth, where these professionals, when you're in a situation of vulnerability and you want the best for your baby and you're not armed with a lot of the pre-knowledge, it can feel again like talking to the cops, which is sad and it's true. And it's just, oh, okay. And then of course, now there's these predatory formula marketing tactics too, where they'll just send a box of Infamil to your house. And it's like, how did you even know I was pregnant? Like, it's wild and it's wacky out there. And obviously, am I so happy that formula exists? Yes. And I am so disappointed in the overall medical community's knowledge and understanding and prioritization of the health benefits that breastfeeding has for mom and baby as something that humans would come out expecting to do if possible. Yes, there are women who will not make enough milk. Yes, there's women who've had double mastectomies or reductions or they have tubular breasts, they have insufficient glandular tissue, whatever. There will be some women who don't want to breastfeed and they're like, I don't want to, and that's my thing. Okay, fine. But we also need to still have reverence for this idea that in an optimal setting for optimal human health, there is breastfeeding happening. And how can we support that? So just even the basics of knowing that colostrum is this like yellow sticky, the baby is getting a very small amount because the baby's stomach is tiny. And if you took a breastfeeding class, hopefully one of the things you would learn is about how small exactly that baby's stomach is on days 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, how it changes rapidly over that first week, how the diaper output should change in conjunction with the days of birth. So like on day 3, ideally we have 3 pee and 3 poop diaper, whatever. There's things that we need to learn like that so that we can get this, we can be monitoring, but it's also a big, huge exercise in trust. And I totally have had the experience of over monitoring and the data and the numbers and writing everything down and obsessing over it. I think that there is a time and place for some of that acutely for a short period of time if we really are actually worried about baby's weight gain or something like that. But we really, as American women, tend to get very hyper focused on this. I do not suggest breastfeeding tracking apps unless you are having a problem. But if everything is going well, please use this up as an opportunity to look into your baby's eyes, have a little moment between yourself and God or whatever it is you believe in, and say, I am going to pay attention to my baby. I'm going to feed them on their cues. I'm not waiting any kind of BS number like 3 to 4 hours, which is something that you might be told by somebody who knows nothing about breastfeeding is, oh yeah, just feed them every 3 to 4 hours. Or saying something like they shouldn't need to feed, but every 3 to 4 hours. That is the craziest single sentence I think I've ever heard in my life. Absolutely no baby is only feeding every 3 to 4 hours in the very beginning in that first couple of days of life. Just not happening. So like if you're being told every 3 to 4 hour crap, it's crazy. I just cannot even understand how someone would suggest that. Now
That's
in the
what they
middle of
told my mom, but that was old Dr. Spock stuff, and I screamed and cried. She thought I was a horrific baby because all I did was cry. So guess who got rice cereal at 2 months?
Oh, no, same thing with my brother. My mom was told, "No, you can't feed him. It's you have to wait 3 or 4 hours again. You have to." And so he would just cry and cry and cry. And she said that it was the hardest, worst thing ever, that all she wanted to do was feed him again. I'm like, how does this happen? But if you don't realize that in the very beginning, you're actually going to be feeding your baby more like every 60 to 90 minutes, maybe every 2 hours. And there's going to be some breaks here in between. But that's very intense, and I think it can be a big shock for women that, oh my gosh, this is my life now. What did I do? Like, how am I ever going to do anything
I
else?
feel like all I do is hold and feed, and I can't even shower. Yeah, it's intense at first.
It is, and
It's
what we need
intense.
to know is that it's not gonna be like this forever. It's really the first 2 weeks, I would say, are very, very intense, and then we start to get the hang of it, and it gets a little bit easier, a little bit easier. You find some patterns. For
And then
that
the
first month.
cluster feeds freak you out because you don't know what's happening again. So
Yes,
please
so
cover
cluster
that as
feeding,
well.
that's another concept that people aren't familiar with. So the idea that your baby, usually in the evening, is going to pretty much feed nonstop for the last several hours of the evening. It kind of loads them up. It's a normal physiological thing. It's normal infant behavior. They cluster feed more when they're going through a growth spurt, which there's a growth spurt usually on like day 3, week 3. There's a little bit of a chart where you can see it. It varies obviously from every baby to baby, but what we need to know is if we are committed to following their cues and leaning into the trust of it, and if you're somebody who does need some data though, then it's okay. Then write down their pee and poop output. Weigh them once a week. Or if they're having an issue with weight gain, maybe you weigh them twice a week. But I really don't want people obsessing, okay, left boob 7 minutes, right boob 13 and a half
If
minutes.
you're so stressed out as a new mom, your baby's patterning their nervous system off of yours. And if you're agitated, anxious the whole time, every time they come up to you, that's what they're feeling. And they're like, what am I doing wrong? What's actually happening? Mom doesn't feel safe. I don't feel safe.
Yes.
That's
And
where we have to lean into the trust.
yes, and a lot of body workers will tell you that too. They're like, okay, this baby is like not really taking a deep breath. Mom, go ahead and take a deep breath. Let's relax. Let's calm down. And then they can start to just see the rhythms all become more regulated. It really is so true. And I think that we need to know also that the stress of this all and cortisol is directly combative with oxytocin. It's just like birth in a lot of ways. We have to protect our mental health space. We have to protect our oxytocin and what's going on around us and just say, you know what? I'm going to get really good zeroed in advice by one person who I really love, who I vibe with. But here's the thing I'll also say, which is annoying. I'm so sorry, but this is true. If you do hire your city's best IBCLC and something doesn't feel right or it's not lining up or things aren't actually improving, then get a second opinion. If you're told your baby is tied or isn't tied and you're feeling adversarial to that piece of advice, like the opposite direction, and you're like, I don't really know, go get a second opinion. Yes, is this an expensive thing? Sometimes, but you know what? Actually, your second opinion could be that you go to a free lactation class and you ask the IBCLC that's working there. For me, that was the game-changing move that I did. I had hired the city's best lactation consultant. I was told all this stuff that wasn't true, that he wasn't tied, and that I had no milk supply when actually I was an oversupplier at that time in my life, and all this stuff. I went to a free lactation group. The woman overheard my story. She looked in his mouth. She said, there's no way that you're ever going to feed that baby with that mouth. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, or you're going to be in extreme pain and bleeding and having mastitis every couple days. So, anyways, long story short, I was so blown away by how two people could have such different opinions about the same thing. And at the end of the day, we're all just humans and we all have different training and different experiences that will show us. Now, is that annoying to hear based on everything else that I just told you? Yes, I get it. But also, sorry, this is all of life. This is every pediatrician advice that you're told now about this baby, about your own motherhood journey and your postpartum recovery and everything. We have to take our own intuition also into account with this and say, okay, I've hired the professional. Maybe I need to get a different professional. Maybe I need to go a different route with this. And just, but again, all of that's going to be a lot smoother and easier if you have some of these basics lined up. Like you had mentioned pumping. A lot of people, for some reason, have this idea because there is a lot of pumping in our culture because of going back to work or whatever, mostly going back to work,
It's a
I'd say.
suggestion from the hospital. I see them say, did you bring your pump? We got to start that pumping. And I'm like, there's nothing going on yet. Why are we doing that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I am not an IBCLC, but I would say from most of the advice that I've gleaned from working with clients, working tandem in hand with IBCLCs, most of the time they're going to say in a normal lactational setting where things are going well, we're not starting to pump until 3 weeks postpartum. We're going to give that baby a bottle around 3 weeks old so that they can learn the bottle if that's going to be something that's part of their life. If they're going to need to go to a different daycare setting, have a nanny, mom's going back to work, mom's pumping for whatever reason, and the baby needs to take a bottle, or even just for date night. And I do think that's a skill that's important. I also think there can be a really beautiful pattern that some couples get into that has worked really well for lots of my friends and patients where mom pumps like once a day, usually in the morning, because again, if we didn't know, breast milk is you're going to have your highest volume in the morning time, like early morning, because prolactin, the hormone that's responsible for creating our breast milk, it peaks around 4 a.m. So usually what will happen in a setting where things are, in a good pattern where it's going is mom feeds the baby in the morning and then she pumps for 10, 20, 30 minutes, however many minutes you need to at that time in your postpartum. Because again, it's going to change. Maybe it's a little bit longer in the beginning. And then as your breasts start to have a full supply, you can pump for a much shorter time and get those ounces out. So she's going to pump, she's going to save and store that milk because it's extra milk. And this is like the one time of the day that she pumps. Then maybe the partner before bed is giving that baby a bottle so that there's a pattern where partner gets to be involved in feeding. Maybe mom is also going to pump now during the time that partner is feeding the baby, because if you have to be removing milk at the same time or around the same time so that you're keeping up with your supply of what the baby is drinking. And then that bottle now replaces the next morning's one, and you keep going in this pattern. And maybe if you have a little extra, you can start to stash it away if you needed that. But there's just so much even to know just about pumping. Say you're a woman who is planning, I have to go back to work at 12 weeks. I need to have you in your mind. You think I have to have hundreds of ounces stored up. No, no. And I do understand why people think this. And is it cool to have a lot of extra milk stored up? Sometimes. I won't even say yes across the board, because a lot of the people who have hundreds of ounces stored up are battling oversupply. And more is not always better. Oversupply has its own set of problems. Clogged ducts and mastitis and a lot of pain and a lot of mental thinking about getting this milk out of your breast before one of those things happens. It's a blessing, but it also has negatives. So we don't want to always think about, oh my gosh, you're just so lucky you have all this milk. But here's the thing. If you're going back to work, really all you actually need is to be one bottle ahead of what your baby is going to be fed. Because say the baby's getting 4 bottles while you're at work, you're going to pump 4 times and you're going to replace those bottles. You're going to bring them back home to you. You're going to put them in your fridge. Those are going to be the bottles that are given to your baby the next day. That next day, while your baby's getting those bottles, you're pumping again and you're replacing them again. So do you see, you're not even dipping into this frozen supply. You're not even like dealing with it. Now, again, that's if we have a good, robust supply. But here's the thing that frustrates the shit out of me is when people, let me just take a deep breath here really quick, is when people so easily fall back on this, at 3 months postpartum, you guys need to understand this. I went back to work and I couldn't keep up. I lost my supply. Here's the truth of this. 1, around 3 months postpartum, a physiological change is happening in your breasts where you don't have a little bit of that extra anymore. You are now regulated to what your baby's output has been. In the beginning, our bodies don't know. Do we have 1 baby? Do we have 2 babies? Do we have no babies? Did the baby make it? And it's sad, it's morbid to think about that, but it's true because our body's trying to figure out, okay, we know we just had a baby for sure. There's this big hormonal change now. Do we have a baby to feed? And if we can get the body on this consistent cycle of, yes, we have a baby to feed, they would need about 30 ounces a day. That's what's being taken out of these breasts. So it's a feedback loop. They're going to replace what was taken out. So we need to have good milk output. Now, a good latch and all these different things are part of this equation so that we build an adequate supply. A lot of women, most women are going to be able to make an adequate supply to feed the baby that they have given birth to. Most women. It is not the other way around. And I feel like a lot of people have it in their heads that it's like rare for people to be able to exclusively breastfeed a baby, that for them to actually have that supply. But so we need to understand that around 3 months, our supply has regulated to that baby and it's not a little bit extra anymore. So you're not going to feel as engorged. You may have to pump a little bit longer. It may be a little bit harder to get this milk out if you are pumping a lot. There's so many things about pumping too, with flange sizes and machines and all of this that we need to know and learn. Again, if you have an IBCLC appointment, they can fit the machine, the little part where your nipple goes in. It's called the flange. And people would be shocked at how small actually their flange size really is, because the one that you're going to buy from the store is going to come out at 24 millimeter, which is huge. And most women, I'm not saying huge like it's funny, all people have, it's just so few people have a 24 millimeter size flange. So they have to go and they have to buy extra flanges. People don't even know that. They don't even know that there's customization. And that matters so much when it comes to getting the milk out. It's like when you hook a cow up to an electronic milker, if you put it in the wrong spot, you're not getting the output that you want from that cow. You have to have it in the right spot. It has to be fit properly to that cow's teat. It has to be like a milking hand has to be doing a particular movement. That's the whole thing with the baby's tongue when they're at the breast. Like our
And we
breasts
don't
aren't.
even know, like, there's so little education on a breast pump, and whatever our insurance covers, we go, okay, we don't even research it.
Yes.
And we don't know if it's even easy to clean, which we need to make sure it's really easy to clean.
Yes, and that you vibe with it. And then here's the thing too, is like these wearable pumps, which seems super convenient because you're like, oh, I'm going to go back to work. I'll just be like pumping while I'm working. A lot of the time, they're not strong enough for the suction to be able to actually get the output that you're looking for to replace. Used here and there, I'm driving somewhere, I'm going to stick my wearable pump in, like whatever. But if you're actually pumping a lot of the time, in general, I don't suggest those. I suggest a regular battery powered or plug in the wall, annoying as they are. That's what we need to be expecting if we're going to be replacing our baby's milk supply. But also, now a lot of women are going back to work at 3 months. And so they are pumping to replace this milk. And if it means for you, if your baby's going to get, again, let's just go back to the example, your baby's getting 4 bottles while you're gone. But when you pump in those 4 times, you're not replacing what that would equate to of about a third of the baby's total milk volume. So about 10 ounces, or these are rough numbers. Okay. If a baby's getting 30 ounces in a day and 4 of those bottles of the, let's say 12, you know what I'm saying? Like if we look at the math in that way and you're not getting to that, then maybe you're going to have to add in another pump. You're also protected in most settings by Title IX. You should have breastfeeding rights. We have to talk about this with our employers. Sometimes we have to make it work. We have to shuttle things around. It is hard. It's not easy. A lot of the systems are set up against us in these ways, but you do have rights and we need to make it work because this is such a common thing for around 3 to 4 months that women are under this guise that they've suddenly lost their milk supply. One other additional thing that happens at the 4 month mark is this 4 month sleep regression. So now baby's awake all night and mom is thinking, oh my God, it's because they're hungry. And it all lines up. It's this perfect storm. Honestly, I feel so bad for these.
Storm.
Yes, I feel so bad for these women in these situations because they feel like, oh, I thought I did everything right. This is so hard. This is so sad. I just wanted to be able to keep doing this and da da da. And it's, well, hold on. There's so many things that can be done. Also, I find that's the end of the 4th trimester, is that 3 month mark postpartum. I find a lot of women stop taking care of themselves around that time. And it's okay. A 12-week-old baby is a way different baby than a 6 or 8-week-old baby for sure. And things in life are maybe feeling a little bit more smooth. You've got your patterns down. You're like, they have a little bit of a pattern with naps. Maybe you're feeling like, okay, I can do this. I'm doing this stuff. But we still need to be really nourishing and taking care of ourselves with the proper eating, with taking our supplements. Also know that, yes, with sleep as much as you can, if napping or whatever it is that's going on. And even just that, okay, that like we could go in and dive in about co-sleeping and how breastfeeding protective co-sleeping is, and this sleep training culture, which is so furious and crazy. And it's okay.
You just can't have all the things. If you're going to sleep train and crib train and whatever, and then you want this ideal, perfect breastfeed, we weren't set up to that.
No.
We were set up to co-sleep with our babies with furs on our body and keep everybody close to us. And there was a bed of 9. Like auntie and grandpa were also in the bed. That's how we started. And so I know random, but that's how it was. And if we made love, everyone was there. That's just what happened. Okay. So to now compartmentalize everything and think it's got to work. Why? Why should it work? The cues are off. The hormones are off. The smelling sensors are off. The baby sensors from their body, they're not even with you anymore. Like we have to go back to evolutionary, what has always worked with a little bit of modern life mixed in it if you want all the things.
Exactly. And to know, maybe you have it in your head that you want this to be a certain way, but your baby is their whole own complete person with their different preferences and their temperament. You may not literally be able to sleep train some babies. Like they're not going to do it. Or it's going to be so traumatic and hard and stressful and horrible and awful. So some babies have a really easy sleep temperament and they do sleep and it's so great. And then they have really good feed. They're just like those big, chunky, happy, like they feed super well. They drain them on. They get like 6 ounces each time they feed. They're sleeping all night. It happens. But so if you're friends with one of those people who has that baby and then your baby is not like that.
And Morgan, I remember with Sunday.
Yeah.
that I'm so tired, I didn't get any sleep, and she didn't eat. And it was that everyday story of checking in. I hope you're okay. Because I saw how rough that was. And and then you figured it out, and then it would change again. And then you would figure it out, and then it would change again. That's what is normal.
Mhm.
And we just don't see that in real time. And I think that if we have people we can follow online that are sharing that, that makes it way more adaptable for us to be like, okay, I'm not a failure. This can work. This is temporary. I'm watching this other person's journey. That real life, that real life stuff is what I think is a really good support for our community.
I totally agree. So I think if we're going to talk about ways to support yourself and set yourself up in this time of your life, finding your IBCLC, talking a lot with your partner too. If your partner can come with you to that appointment, that's great, because as much as it feels like it's all on you because they don't have the nipples to feed the baby, they're very much going to be in for it too if they don't know what is coming,
In the
because
first 30 days, your partner and everybody around you needs to be all in on supporting that. Even when people come to visit, you're getting ready to feed, go to another room. No one's going to be offended. That
yes,
has to be priority instead of everybody gets to hold the baby and I miss all the cues.
yes, and then you're feeling drained from talking. Like, for some reason, as much as I love to talk and I like to talk fast and I talk for my living, there is something about talking postpartum for me, which I've noticed now after having 4 babies, that is really, it really takes it out of me. And I had this situation where a friend came over early after my 4th was born Sunday, and I was telling her the birth story, and all of a sudden an hour went by and we'd just been talking, 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 talking. And I felt like I got hit by a Mack truck. Like, those are the types of little things we're just not doing. We're being gentle on ourselves. Or maybe you think like one day that feels good and then one day your energy doesn't feel good for that. It's full on. Mom is sitting in the bed. This is the 5 5 5, 5 days in the bed, 5 days on the bed, 5 days around the bed. Ideally, though, we can like double or even triple that, because that's what other communities are doing around the world. It's really hard to get an American woman to just do even 15 days around the bed, which is, you guys, normally it's 40 days. And that means everything is done for you. Every meal is brought to you, and you are bleeding and feeding and sweating and dripping milk and crying happy tears, crying sad tears, going through it. Your body is having this huge emotional change. All of these hormones are changing. Your cardiovascular system is changing. All of your organs are moving back into their normal spaces. Your lactational physiology, brain state is different than a pregnancy
I
brain
mean,
state is
that's why a
different.
partner needs to know all that
Yes, because they need to
because
know
it's
to expect
overwhelming
it.
for the partner too.
Yes, they need to know to expect it. They need to know that this is temporary, like we've been saying, because it is like a huge shift. Everything stops on a dime. You're not walking the dog, you're not getting the mail, you're not on your computer, you're not doing anything. And you'll see some people doing it, and this is the toxic influencer, mommy influencer culture, where they're back at the CrossFit gym at 3 days postpartum. And I would never ever suggest that to anybody. I think that it's really actually so damaging and unhelpful for them to be showing that's what they're doing. Or even out at the beach or at a playground, it's like, you guys just sit down. You never get this time ever again. You will never have it with this baby again. And especially if it's your first baby, everything's different once you do have other children, and it's a little bit more, and you do sometimes have to take care of your other children more. And of course, this is in an ideal setting where people do have the support, and I know there are so many people out there that don't have the support. And my heart goes out for those situations, because I don't think it's right. Every woman deserves much better than that. But everybody has to be on the same page. We have to have multiple conversations throughout the pregnancy of what we expect and how we're going to get there.
So what would those conversations look like? So say in-laws are coming, your mom's coming, whatever that is. Where do you start with those conversations? Because that's moms and mother-in-laws have their own filters with
Yeah,
breast.
and depending on the generation that your parents plug into, most of them probably being boomers, it's really different. It was very different back then. And they often did not breastfeed. They often slept trained very early, and the baby slept immediately day one in a crib in a different room. And they did not attachment parent, and they did not know some of these things. And they also had the cultural expectation to be leave it to beaver, to be cooking immediately, and all these different things that we no longer value or we see as even
Or we have
feasible. Or
science behind that says, why did we do that?
exactly. And so we cannot, they need to have some, they're probably not going to have this, but we, I guess, need to know whatever they're going to say about you and say, oh, I didn't do that. I didn't have people coming over and making my food. And it's like really different. And also, that doesn't, even if it wasn't different, did they like that? Did they have fun with that? Were they in a good way? And wouldn't they see the benefit of being cared for and allowing ourselves to be cared for, allowing ourselves to be mothered as we transition into motherhood? So I think there almost needs to be a document, somebody needs to write it, where it's like, hey, your sister-in-law's having, you can change the name of it, your sister-in-law's having a baby, your daughter's having a baby, or whatever. And it can be this little document that in a very non-confrontational, non-judgmental way outlines with some of the science, we're human beings. We have adaptations and expectations that we've developed through millennia of the way that we're going to thrive, the way that we're going to be able to do these things that we know are consistent with health. It looks like this, that, and the other thing. 4 meals a day, this type of food, not getting up out of the bed, allowing herself to bleed, allowing herself to have these emotions, being surrounded in a supportive and loving environment, not being forced to bounce back, not being celebrated when she's doing extra things around the house because she's super mom. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to see that. That's not a flex. I think it used to be a flex. It's not a flex anymore. I honestly pity those situations. It makes me feel sad.
Because you
And
know how worn out they are and how
yes,
much pressure they feel to keep everything up and keep everything going. It's so hard on them.
it's not worth it. It's not worth your sanity and your health. Also, just even to know, okay, like a blurb that could be in this document is about how we know that there is this opportunity, epigenetic opportunity in the postpartum space to have deep healing in the mother's body if things are going well. We also have this opportunity for predispositions in her epigenetics, things like autoimmune disease, to rear their heads for the first time ever if she is put into a hyper stressful state, because there's always a trigger for those types of things. And giving birth can be a very big trigger. Postpartum can be a very big trigger meaning like not a mental emotional trigger, but like a something that's going to now set off a different genetic expression of what was
That's
going on.
so important for people to know. Like
Yeah.
the postpartum time has to be protected, which is why I really try to get them educated for birth, because if they have a good birth experience, they carry that into the postpartum. And it's way less mental stress on them than if they didn't have that kind of a birth.
And it's something that when I look back on my first postpartum, I feel sad for myself because I was not able to enjoy my first baby, my first experience in motherhood. I didn't enjoy it until he was 10 months old. And then I literally felt like I looked at myself in the mirror one day. I was getting ready for school because I was in medical school. And I felt like I saw myself again. Like I hadn't even seen myself. Like I hadn't even seen him. I had been looking at him through this lens of instinct and hypervigilance and survival and adrenaline. And it was like so panicked. So I had postpartum anxiety that developed from this. Like I had so many bouts of mastitis and just nipple pain and damage from him being tied. Even though we did get it released, it was a consistent thing. It was bad. And I had too much milk and then he couldn't get it out and blah, blah, blah. That's why I'm saying too much milk is not always a good thing. So, anyways, I don't want that for anyone ever again. I don't ever want to hear that a woman say, I wish I had known. And it can just be different. It can be there's still here's the thing though too, I will be completely honest with you. Even if you're a pregnant mom listening to this podcast and you take a breastfeeding class, you hire your IBCLC, you meet with her beforehand, all these things. When your baby comes out, you're still going to be learning about breastfeeding. So do not also then have the expectation that you're going to come into this like an absolute expert sage wise boss, because that's not true either for the most cases. You will have it, you need to just know that there will be things that you find challenging. It might not even be breastfeeding, it might be something different, it might be your pelvic floor, it might be whatever, but there's going to be some other sort of challenge, and that's okay too. But can we see the value in having a base layer overview of these concepts, these terms, these ideas? Cluster feeding, the reverse pressure softening, giving the bottle at 3 weeks, not doing it too early because we don't want them to prefer the bottle, using a newborn nipple tip on that bottle instead of a size 1 or 2, because if a baby does have a hard time getting the milk out of a breast and then now they have this flowing milk in their mouth, they're going to prefer that, and we don't want that to happen, right? So it's okay, how do we do this in a way where we can learn the bottle but not like this and that
Well,
and
and some women don't even know they have inverted nipples. And then
yes.
they get shamed by, well, you should have come earlier. You didn't know. There's all these things that we can do to help that. But they didn't know. Those were just the nipples they were blessed with. They just didn't know that those are going to be hard to feed from, right?
Or like how you can use a nipple shield temporarily as a tool, but we don't want to be using nipple shield every single time because there's downsides with that. And then baby not being able to get a full milk removal. And there's just so much to learn. So I want people to feel inspired and say, okay, there is a lot here. I've got it. Like one of my favorite books is The Womanly Art of Breastfeeding by Lilach Lake, and then also Ina May Gaskin's Guide to
I
Breastfeeding.
love hers. It's
I
so
know.
simple and concise. It's so good.
And I think that you should just have those on your bedstand and you're looking at them, you're flipping through, you're marking a couple pages and having your partner read it just so that they're like aware. Because although, yes, it's happening in your body, they're going to be intimately involved in this in some way. And just again, it's not one conversation. It's not, okay, I'm 32 weeks pregnant. I'm going to talk with my partner now for the next 2.5 hours about breastfeeding. No, it is a 6 second, okay, wait, we're going to do this, right? Okay, yeah, you're coming with me here. Okay. And then it's a 20-minute conversation here. And then you're sending them some reels that you find online. They're
And they're
explaining
really
things.
good at compartmentalizing that information and reminding you when you're super frustrated. Wait, didn't they say to do that reverse thing when you're too engorged? Like they remember stuff and
Yes.
they're not in it. They're overtired, but they're not in it the way we are. And they do remember things that over those conversations they picked up a little bit. So I think that's spirit's way of saying, I've got your help,
Yes, because if they're male, they're problem oriented and solution oriented. So yeah, they're going to compartmentalize the solutions that they pick up on and they hear. And we as women are sometimes like, your brain on sleep deprivation is just a different brain. And even me, even as a fourth time, this is my field, this is my work. Sometimes I forget those sorts of easy solutions. Like, wait, couldn't I do that? Shouldn't I use that sort of thing? Oh yeah, I forgot about the silverettes to heal my nipples. I forgot about whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like these are the things that, and unfortunately, it just is what it is. Information is always changing. So there is some things that are consistent, but even just from a couple of years ago, the mastitis guidelines used to be like using a lot of heat and a lot of massage and pressure down towards the nipples. And now we're like, okay, wait, hang on. The breast is a gland. If we push on a gland really aggressively, you're going to cause more inflammation. Okay, what is a clogged duct? It's not necessarily one duct. It's just massive inflammation where all the milk can't come through because actually the ducts are little teeny tiny thin spaghetti strands overlapping each other and like highways crossing. They're not just direct straight shot lines the way we used to think it was. So my point here is just that like as science and medicine and clinical practice is evolving, we'll know that there's these different things. But another gripe that I have, just last thing I'll say here, is that because pregnancy and lactating women are specialized communities, there's so few tidbits of information that practitioners are giving them on ways that they can support themselves with supplements and herbs and different things because they feel like there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can take. You just have to suffer. It's like, I just, I just don't know why they think that. Okay, if we're only going off of the evidence-based studies, yeah, then it's very limited. But you have to know that is not the way that it works in clinical medicine. People give things off label, they give things clinically that we have no studies to show for anything. Big, crazy, really intense pharmaceuticals all the time. That is how it goes. So for you to take some echinacea in your pregnancy, actually echinacea is one of those that is studied in pregnancy as safe and effective. Like you do not have to suffer just because you're breastfeeding or just because you're pregnant. If you get sick or if you have something going on, you have pain, there's other things you can do to help yourself than the like one or two pharmaceutical options that they've studied and they tell you that are there. Now, similarly, in a postpartum and a breastfeeding state, there are galactagogue herbs you can take. Galactagogue means an herb that has from some different function. There's lots of different ways that they can work. And that's why I like the blends. I don't just pick up moringa personally. I don't just pick up goat's rue. I like the blends because they come from different angles of how they can help you with your milk supply. And also just taking your prenatal vitamin and your omegas and creatine in your postpartum and breastfeeding
And
state to help.
remembering to take that is
Yes,
the thing
yes, that's
because
so
we
true.
don't take care of ourselves and we don't take our supplements again.
And this is something that your partner can do. You put them in charge. You say, I am asking you to every day remind me or ask me, did you take your supplements today? Because you would be shocked. You won't be shocked once it's happening to you, but the day will just go and all of a sudden it's 2 o'clock. You haven't brushed your teeth. You're in the same pad from last night. It's all bloody. It's all down your leg. You're like, what is going on? And I laugh because I think it's funny. And if we can see the funny and the joy and these like moments of chaos and these short periods of time where it's, wow, this is crazy. I crave it. Like I want to do it again. I want to do pregnancy and birth and postpartum again, even though I have a hard time in postpartum because There is so much magic in it. And being able to enjoy your baby is our number one goal in this. This is the whole point of this episode, is just to say, I don't want you to have struggle. I don't want you to be set up unsuccessfully. I don't want you to be constantly on your phone Googling and trying to figure out things when you could be staring into the eyes of your sweet angel baby that you just created and enjoying them and just being present and knowing like these are days that right now I will think about for the rest of my entire life, and they're going by, and hopefully they're mostly good. There will be hard times. And trust me, like I'm your big sister in this. I've been there, and also still it's worth it. And to focus on the joy where you can, I think is another huge thing. It goes back to like overall partner support, what we could do. Maybe not for the first 10 days, you're not really thinking about this because you're just trying to get your bearings. But at some point in the first month postpartum, if we can intentionally, as new moms, plug in something in our day that brings us joy, whether it's reading a book for 20 minutes uninterrupted, baby is somewhere else, it's after we're feeling a little bit better physically, we take our dog on a walk because we love it, whatever it is that fills you up, a hot bath, something that truly like for a short amount of time gets you a high boost in some way, like you love to paint or sing, or you're going to call your friend and you're uninterrupted. You're really having this capsule created by your partner who's going to protect your space for this little bit of joy. But every day, it's every single day. So it has to get in there. It's profound how something small like that, even just because then say at 2:00, you're having a really rough one, but like, you know, that at some point in the day, you're going to have a little bit of a break, like knowing it's coming, even that aspect of it can be helpful. So
I think
it,
that just that releases oxytocin.
it does.
Knowing I'm just
Yes.
gonna go into my closet and cry, and that's gonna feel
Yeah.
so fucking good. I'm gonna
Yes.
be on the floor with my head buried in my blankie, and I'm gonna cry for 15 minutes because this is and
Yep.
that crying releases really good feel-good hormones, and we need to do that sometimes, and that's the joy of that particular day sometimes, is just feeling the relief of, "I needed that break so much," and the deep breath that we can get with that cry.
Yeah. I needed to get it out. I needed to process this humongous, amazing, but also sometimes scary or intense transition that now I have this dependent upon me for all of time. And there's again, this is just even like a yet another angle. So many cogs in the wheel of what's happening in this time period. And so as it relates to breastfeeding, I think what I want people to get out of this is there is so much that we can do to relieve that overwhelm on our plates. And luckily, pregnancy is 9 months for most people. And so it's a long time. It's a good chunk. And you don't want to be putting that sort of task for when you're giving birth or at 36 weeks, because you might give birth at 38 weeks and you've now only learned about breastfeeding for 2 weeks. And you're like, I mean, it's better than you did something than nothing. But
Well, and my thought
it
too
should be,
is when you're first pregnant, you're super tired, you're really
yeah.
excited, you don't know what to do. Start breastfeeding stuff right then.
Mm-hmm.
You can hit those breastfeeding support groups. You can start learning because now you're going to set yourself up with women who have already done that. And they're going to be like, oh my gosh, this doctor, oh my gosh, this insurance. You're going to get really good support throughout your whole pregnancy from people who have just lived it. And not only that, hearing this is what was my struggle was, this is what worked, this is what I heard at the hospital. I wish I'd heard this. Why wouldn't you want to start that earlier? Because that's
Mm-hmm.
going to set you up for success. That is free advice from the people who are going through it in the moment, who have nothing to gain but wanting you to do better than they did.
Yeah. And you can learn a lot from these types of podcasts. Like just this has been, to an extent, a little mini class. You know what I mean? And there are lots of other podcasts where you can listen while you're walking and while you're doing the dishes and you're doing things around your house and you're learning and you're gleaning. It can be integrated. It can be really beautiful and fun and lighthearted. It doesn't have to feel like yet another task. Sometimes it may, but I guess I just want it to be something that you're excited to learn about because you want it to go well for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Morgan, oh my gosh. So much information in this, you guys. And all of those little bits you can start researching because it should be lighthearted and it can be fun and it can be joyful and hard at the same time. Like we can host both of those things. All right, well, stick around for part 2. We are going to get to that, all things postpartum that we have not talked about in this episode, but we have hinted a few of them. So thank you, Morgan, and we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. And remember, it's your body, your choice, and finding your voice is your power. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us in all the places, and go to birtheducationcenter.com for our blog and more online education classes. And we'll see you next week.